This is why people are obsessed with the dark feminine energy. They subconsciously want to be approved by this type of energy, as if a queen herself has vetted and approved of them. Hello my loves, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Tatiana and I run a brand called The Universe, which focuses all on feminine energetics, health, self-development, and manifesting with our feminine energies. Today's topic is all about feminine energies, so we're going to dive into the different topics I have for you, including practices, and we're going to wrap up with a meditation. But before we get started, make sure to check out the description box to get your free feminine energies guide, which goes hand in hand with these feminine energy series that I have created. Like the moon, women are multifaceted. We go through different phases that are emotionally and physically demanding. And we're also going to cover a little bit more of that later on in this video, of the different phases that we go through. Simply put, a woman has access to three main energies, and these energies are her light feminine energy, which is her goddess, her princess energy. Her dark feminine energy is like her queen, that boss energy inside of her. And her masculine energy is like her warrioress energy, is like that badass energy inside of her. They create a trinity, a trifecta effect, that when a woman utilizes these energies with intention, is as if she has learned how to utilize the three primary colors, red, yellow, and blue, and now she is able to utilize those colors with intention to create works of art. She becomes the muse. She is the artist as well. She is the inspiration, but also she knows how to utilize her masculine energy to get things going and to create things and make her world a reflection of her inner world with intention. This is one of the most profound and empowering realizations for a woman, as to begin with, we were not taught these in school. We were conditioned since we were young to fall into a mold to better please society and society needs. You see women being successful in their careers and empowering themselves through their masculine energy to get things done, to achieve things, but at the same time they're missing that soft side of the feminine energy, and that is part of why understanding the trifecta effect, understanding this trinity, and how we have different needs. If we want to be able to look at a picture, for example, between black and white and color, some people might gravitate more towards black and white and some might gravitate more towards color, but understanding that we are able to connect to color, similarly to the example earlier from understanding the three main energies as the three primary colors, to be able to mix them up and then create a work of art. Similarly, when we understand our energies at our core, we are able to not only dive into a world that is of energetics that can allow us to self-empower ourselves by ourselves in the middle of the night when the lights are off, and we find fulfillment and we find that we're not alone. That's when we get more of those realizations. That's when we get more of those I get it, like I get something, like I don't know how to explain it, but I feel something profound in me. Those realizations come alone. So the more aware that we become of our own energies, of our own patterns, of our own faces, the more that we empower ourselves. The easier that we're going to respond to life rather than react to life, feeling lost, feeling misunderstood, feeling vulnerable, but rather we empower ourselves through our own self-development, and then things just fall into place, as this is energy that we're talking about. energy is energy, and that is how we're able to create harmony within our lives, by being aware of what doesn't work, so that way we continue to focus on what we actually want to give our attention and intention to, and continue to allow things to unfold naturally, organically, and energetically fall into place. Within the feminine energy dynamic, there is also duality, like day and night. There is the light feminine and there is the dark feminine. Since they are feminine energies, they're both gonna be connected to intuition. The light feminine energy feels more connected to intuition in a lighted, guided way, versus the dark feminine is going to be connected to her intuition in a more profound and fearless way, in a way where nothing can shake that connection, because it's coming from her inner knowing, from her higher self. The light feminine energy is able to relax and enjoy all of the good things that life has to offer. The dark feminine energy is able to exude more respect in a way where she is able to detach, almost like there is this barrier that you shall not cross. And especially if she is walking, let's say at night, down a street where it's dark, she is going to continue to have that self-respect that makes her look bold. She is able to walk connected to her power, ready to make anyone believe that she is a dark witch, and she's ready to cast a spell on anyone who tries to mess with her. So better not cross her boundaries, and better to also keep their distance. And she can do this while remaining sovereign. Both the light and dark feminine energies are extremely alluring under their own light or shade. The light feminine energy is going to exude a warm allure that is going to make others want to be around her proximity field. And even if she doesn't share enough about herself, it's okay. Just being close to her is enough for them to feel closer to that vibrant energy. Just seeing her smile is enough to make them feel more connected to whatever she is connected to. On the other hand, the dark feminine energy shows more mystery, shows more of that queen energy that requires more. This is why people are obsessed with the dark feminine energy. They subconsciously want to be approved by this type of energy, as if a queen herself has vetted and approved of them. The dark feminine energy is seductive. The more still she is, the less that she moves, the more that her body speaks for herself, the more that her eyes speak for herself. We live in a twofold universe that has both feminine and masculine energies. And essentially, feminine energy is the one that has the flow, and masculine energy is the one that is a safe container where that flow can live and feel supported. We create attraction when we allow our feminine energies to flow with creativity and allow our masculine energies to continue with action. We feel unease, we feel energized, and we don't feel that we had to force things. And it's important to remember when we're looking at feminine and masculine energy dynamics, first within ourselves, that when we women use our masculine energy, it's to achieve something, it's to take action towards something. So for example, if I say I want to paint, I'm more connected to my masculine energy, and I start looking at what time is going to be the sunrise, for example, and then I know, okay, so I gotta wake up at this time, so that way I give myself enough prep time, and then I'm able to get a good time to capture the sun as it is, with its vibrancy in front of my eyes, and I can capture it in a painting. Okay, so what materials am I going to need? Okay, I'm gonna need brushes, I'm gonna need these colors, I'm gonna need a canvas, I'm gonna need a pencil, I'm going to need also an eraser, I'm gonna need, and then you continue to go down the line. That is you and your masculine energy. And then you wake up at the time you said that you were going to. So not only at that moment you're telling yourself subconsciously, I was able to accomplish the first task, I trusted myself. And then you continue to scratch off the rest of the things that you needed, and you have them all ready, and then you begin painting. You continue to connect with your presence, you continue to feel, and you continue to sense how you want the paint to feel, to look. And then you continue to utilize your masculine energy to complete little tasks, as in, okay, what type of feeling do I want to go for? Okay, and then connecting to your feminine energy on, what do you think is going to bring me that it factor that I'm going for at this moment in time? And then your feminine energy is going to tell you, add a little bit of this, add a little bit of that, a little subtle here, a little bit more vibrant there. And you continue to receive feedback from your own self. It's sort of like you have your own Powerpuff Girls. You have the three of them. One of them's gonna be lighter, one of them's going to be in her darker feminine energy, the other one's gonna be in her masculine energy, but they all have a different purpose. They all have a different energy, and by combining them, you know what to ask from each one of them. So when you connect to your masculine energy and you do it with that intention, not only you gain more confidence and you continue to respect yourself even more, and you know that if you need to take care of something, you are able to accomplish it, because not only you were able to complete the first task, you were able to complete this, you were able to complete that, and you went down the line until you were done. We don't realize that when we are able to continue to scratch off things that we have to do, subliminally in our subconscious mind, we are telling ourselves that we're actually winners, that we are actually successful, and that we continue to trust ourselves. A lot of times we have a creative block. We have a block in general in life because subconsciously we just don't trust ourselves. We don't realize that subconsciously what we've been telling and feeding ourselves is the idea that we are not good enough. And for anyone who listens to no, I do believe I am more than good enough, but subconsciously what's under the surface is a history with patterns of uncompleted tasks, of unfulfilled promises, of broken words, of not being able to sustain something for long enough before giving up. So subconsciously, that's when the subconscious is, yeah, you're not good enough. And this is not a type of behavior that we want to continue. Remember, it's the subconscious that we're talking about at that point. Most of the type of training that we do is reprogramming our subconscious mind, which traces back to when you were a child, when you were first observing the world and taking notes from your parents, from your environment, on how things work. Okay, so how do I make money? How does money work? I just want to spend it. I want that toy over there. I want this over here. I want it. And I got it, right? And then your parents would say, no, I'm sorry. There's not enough for that. And then earlier on, you start to learn not only limits, but also subliminally, you started to teach yourself through your environment what was acceptable, what was not acceptable, what is normal, what is not normal. So what we're doing here is that we are being honest with ourselves, so that way we are able to recreate and reprogram ourselves in a way where we are able to take more control and lead of our own lives and be able to enjoy living our lives in a way that feels not only rewarding, that feels more connected to ourselves and in tune to our true desires. But it all comes from perception. It all comes from how we look at ourselves and how we accept our subconscious side. So bringing back the Powerpuff Girls, that is going to be the magical formula that's going to allow you to see the 3 versions of yourself that live inside of you. That when you need to get more of the blossom energy, you're able to connect to blossom. When you need to get more into the bubbles energy, you get more into the bubbles energy. If you need to connect more to your buttercup and be able to execute things and take action and make things happen, then you do that. And you get the idea. You're able to utilize and call into these energies and almost like have a little meeting where you listen to each one of them and you listen to their feedback because they are part of you. And make it fun and dynamic. There's no reason why you shouldn't have fun with it. That is part of the feminine energy, the creativity. We don't need to ask permission to our logical side to be able to enjoy something. And let's remember, a lot of us love Disney when we were kids. A lot of us, well, I prefer the classic Disney over the more recent Disney. I'm an early 90s baby. I remember my Disney princesses with love. And I remember when the VHSs would come out and how that would bring magic into my life. When we are able to connect to our own inner child as the archetype that connects us to that purity, to that innocence, to that playfulness, that is when we're able to not only connect more to our light feminine energy, but also allow ourselves to gain more energy from it. That type of energy is so light, we feel like we're flying. If you want to dive more into the different energy types, I'm going to link in the description and somewhere in the screen where you can find the feminine energies playlist that I have created. And you can also download my feminine energies guide that is included inside of the description box, so that way you can go along and play along. It's a fun, visual, and dynamic way of learning more of the 3 different energy types. When we feel energies repelling, it's easy to tell. Things are not aligning. Things are not working out. And we also feel a friction inside of our bodies. And understanding this can be very helpful, as our bodies are constantly trying to protect us. Our bodies and our minds, their one job is to keep us safe. And although sometimes we do react and feel intimidated by something that triggers us, that might be related to our past and might not be as intimidating in real life as we perceive it to be, we have to be able to differentiate between our own triggers from the past, that our memories, that our brains, that our bodies have kept a little notice of, as if it's something important to remember, so that way we don't have to get hurt again, versus when it's a real life situation where you might end up not only losing time, losing energy, wasting years of your life, or putting yourself in a position where you might end up getting off track. Those are gonna be different things. One comes from our own fears, and the other one is coming from life itself, bringing us a challenge. But the thing that is beautiful to remember is that we have free will. Just because we are being thrown into a situation doesn't mean that we need to stay there, especially if we're trying to bring any type of comfort or bring any type of companionship to someone else. We don't have to stay there. That might be their lesson, not our lesson to learn. Some scenarios are more simple than we realize. Some of them just involve and require us to look both sides before we cross the street, before we are going into something blindly and not realizing if we're getting ourselves hurt on the way. So understanding our own energies is what's going to help us to be able to realize when something is genuine to you, when something is not genuine to you but might belong to someone else, and when something doesn't feel right, when something doesn't feel like it's aligning, because it's sort of like you're trying to create the color green by mixing red and yellow, but you can't get the color green, and this is something that frustrates you. because you really think that this combination is gonna get you green, but instead it's getting you orange. Similarly, in life, when we are trying to look at things from a different perspective, maybe we're giving someone else the benefit of the doubt, we might look at situations and we might think that what we need is yellow and red to be able to get a green outcome. But in reality, what we need is to get the yellow and the blue to get that green. So we need to get more invested in our feminine energy, in our light feminine energy, our dark feminine energy, or our masculine energy side, depending on the situation that we're in, depending on the scenario. And once we're able to really understand these energies, we're really able to read not only ourselves, but read energies, as this is something that every woman, human being, has access to. So our own body language is actually a beautiful mirror of feedback that we have for ourselves, and people are always speaking through their body language. It's something that they're not exactly conscious of. Like, for example, for the longest time before I started recording myself in front of a camera, I was aware that I have an expressive face, but I hadn't realized that when I thought that I was calm internally and I was at peace and just chilling, my facial expressions were saying something different. And it was because I was also adapting to my environment, adapting to who I was in front of. And if the person in front of me was more dominant than me, then I would be more quiet, I would be more in a surrendering state, not really wanting to bump heads. That's how I ended up attracting a lot of friendships where I was more submissive and they were more dominant. And that included a lot of female friendships where they were more dominant, and I ended up attracting also a lot of friendships with guys who were a lot more into their feminine energy, and I was more into my masculine energy. And for the longest time I thought that this was something that worked for me, until I started to become more feminine. I started to understand feminine dynamics with masculine dynamics, and I started to realize that certain things, even coming from my male friends, didn't make me feel safe, and certain things coming from my female friends made me feel like we were bumping heads by me trying to step into my masculine energy more, and feeling that as soon as I would step into that energy, I would feel unsupported. I would feel like I was not supposed to step there, like that was territory that I wasn't allowed to embrace. So with time I had to let go of different friendships, as it's part of life to prioritize our growth. If we don't prioritize it now, we are gonna get into an old age where we're going to get a lot of regrets. And the interesting thing is that when we look at people who are about to die, the things that they say that they regret the most are the things that they didn't do. So if we live a life where we are conditioning ourselves, where we're putting on this facade to be liked by other people, to be welcomed by other people, without even realizing and understanding who is behind that mask, we're really doing a disservice to ourselves. We are not giving us our own selves a chance to stand up with our own truth and to embrace it beautifully, as not only when we understand the different energy dynamics that are going on, all we have to do is understand the basics, and then everything else starts to make more sense. We don't need to do a lot of healing afterwards. Healing is more like something that is nurturing, but you start to realize that you can get healed instantly at that moment. You don't need to go through all of these different struggles and puzzles to be able to feel that you have realized who you are. When you realize who you are in the now, that is when you're able to come up with ways to unfold paths of unlimited resources, that you are stepping into a different dimension. You're leaving this 3D dimension and you're stepping into a dimension that goes beyond what meets the eye. Let's look at animals. They can see things that we don't see. They can see colors that we don't see. If we really look at our planet and we look at what's above, what's below, what's on the side, and what is around everything around our solar system, we are looking at infinity. We're looking at infinite potentiality. And when we look at this present moment, it's almost like life has taken a different perspective when we realize that there's something absolutely bigger than ourselves. There's a way that we continue to rotate around our sun, and we continue to have our satellite, the moon, being able to continue to contribute to this planet. And when we start to look at life and the fascinating language of energies that are always speaking, they might not use English, but they do utilize patterns, they utilize numbers, they utilize different codes. And the easiest way to get self-empowerment is to be able to know how to activate it, to know what goes where, to know which category we want to select from. Do we want to utilize more light feminine energy? Do we want to utilize more dark feminine energy? Do we want to embrace more masculine energy? That is going to simplify not only your life, but also the more that you practice it, the better you're going to get. And people are going to be asking you what's different about you. And then you can let them know that, you know, your priorities have changed. You are manifesting the life of your dreams. You are in the making of your own life, of your own dreams. You are in the process of that life that you want to achieve. There's a difference between I dream about this life and then it's like, you know, it's a cute wish, versus I am in the process of building this for myself. There is a big difference. One sounds like, you know, I wish to go to Disney World one day, and then the other one sounds like I am realistic, but at the same time I'm working towards it. Also, when we realize our own energetic dynamics, we are able to realize the healthy version versus the old version of what we used to know and what used to come in as second nature because it was all we knew. For example, when we understand how to utilize our masculine energy with intention, then we start to realize that not only this energy is important in relationships with other people, the relationships that involve family dynamics, significant relationships, friendships, our masculine energy is always taking a place in our lives. And if, for example, we are trying to be caring towards another person and we are trying to help them with their struggles, be nice and motherly towards them, and we start mothering them, we are not realizing that actually what we're doing is that we're creating friction. Motherly energy is more feminine, is more trusting, is the one that's going to look at another human being and be compassionate and be nurturing. Mothering energy is masculine energy in feminine disguise, essentially. We think that when we are mothering another person, we're being motherly, but those two are completely different. When we are mothering, for example, our partner in a relationship, we are creating more friction than attraction. And it's noticing those little things that make a big difference, such as when if you're an artist and you're trying to paint a sunset, you know that what the theme you're going for is more of a warmer energy. So you're going to use more of the yellow and the red versus the blues as much. And that way you paint with intention. That way you feel the difference in energy versus if it was a cooler painting, then you would utilize more of the blues to bring more of that, for example, oceanic art into life. You would utilize different colors with intention. But this is just an example on how easy it is to notice, okay, I need more yellow here, I need more red there, I need more blue here, as in, okay, I want to connect more to my light feminine energy, I want to connect more to my dark feminine energy, or I want to connect more to my masculine energy right now. When we utilize our masculine energy, we are not only able to utilize it to get things moving, like not only physically but also through action, but we can also utilize it when we're dancing. When we're dancing, we're receiving not only feedback from our own body, but we're energizing our connection to our body, and we're creating flow. We're letting stress fall off our shoulders, fall off our hips. As women, we accumulate a lot of stress around our hip area and we don't realize it. So when we dance, we allow not only a flow to come in through, get inside of us, and allow us to shake it off and allow us to feel rejuvenated, to feel that vitality vibrating inside of us. We feel happier, we release dopamine, and if we turn it also into a workout with flow, we still are able to connect to our feminine energy through the flow part of it, but also we are working at our body and getting closer to our dream body. And the more that we do little things that build towards health earlier on, the more easier it becomes. It becomes a second habit, and it becomes something that is enjoyable and it's part of our routine. Now, when we're looking at feminine and masculine energy in more relationship dynamics, when women come together, that is a beautiful energy. We often love to see women coming not only together in meetings. That is a beautiful energy. I often like to describe this energy when everyone knows their own beautiful essence as if you're stepping into a garden that feels nurturing, that feels alive and creative, and it has that feminine essence. And there's all different sorts of flowers, all different sorts of colors, all different sorts of shapes, and each one represents something beautiful and they know it, and so that way they don't have to compare one another to the flower next to them. Rather, they are all beautiful and vibrant together. So we have to feel safe to express ourselves in a beautiful and mindful sisterly way. Now, if we look at feminine energy dynamics with masculine dynamics, as in a woman, a very feminine woman, and a masculine man, she is going to be able to connect with her counterpart as in a man who is able to take the lead, who is able to take charge, who is able to show that he has structure and discipline. As in nature, let's remember that females are the ones who vet males, and it's for a good reason. We are the ones who continue to multiply and continue to take not only a DNA and turn it into a baby that will continue legacy. We have to be very selective so that way we know that we're gonna be able to give the best to the offsprings, to the babies that are born. So it's in our nature to be selective, and there's no shame on that. Actually, the more that we know what to look for, the less time that we waste, the more that we know what we want, and therefore we're able to attract it faster and with less confusion. And something that I like to give as an advice is, if someone is confused whether or not to remain with someone, or if they want to pursue something with someone else, I would ask myself, is this person someone I would feel that my daughter is safe with if she was to spend one-on-one time with him? Is he someone who is respectable? Is he someone who knows his own limits? Is he someone who knows how to communicate in clear and transparent ways? Is he someone who is ready to provide and not accept 50-50? living in New York City, loving my independence. I used to be the type of girl who would go on a date with a guy, and because I didn't want to feel obligated for more, not because I didn't like them, just because I wanted to take it slow in my own way that I understood at the time, I would take out my wallet when it came to paying, or at least I would reach for it. And the majority of guys would say, no, I got it. And they would cover it. But also there were the guys who would be completely fine splitting 50-50. And I didn't realize that at the time really what I wanted was to have some type of control. I was going behind the idea that if I paid 50-50, that meant that I didn't owe anything to that person. But later on, what I realized was that not only I was giving the wrong idea, giving the wrong impression from the start, as deep inside, a provider man is gonna be glad to provide for a woman. It's something that is more instinctual. It's something that is in their DNA. When they're able to feel a sense of pride on something that they have selected, that they had been able to provide as an experience, from the places where he takes a lady to even what they eat together, that is something that is an introduction. It's like a presentation card. So when we allow a guy to show up in his full masculine provider energy, that is going to be something that subconsciously he's going to be able to own more, versus if it was 50-50, or if you are the one who ends up paying for the date. And it's something that they're not gonna realize at the moment when it's happening. Some of them are gonna be like, okay, that's fine, you can get the Burger King and the Impossible Burgers, and they're not gonna realize exactly at that moment that is gonna be something that's gonna bother them. A guy who wants to provide is going to feel a little bit more uncomfortable when a woman wants to be the one who takes care of the order, for example, and she's the one who pays through her app. He is not gonna know exactly why, but he's gonna feel a little itch, like there's something repelling. So ladies, the more that we are aware of how energy dynamics work, not only within our own bodies first, it's gonna be easier to be able to read our own body cues, our own body language, and be able to read other people, sort of like we are going to a book club, and we know that that's part of life, being able to read. I read for you, I let you know what my insights are, and you let me know what your insights are, and then you read for me, and then we're able to share and communicate and be able to learn more about a different side of one another. That is life, that's normal. So let's make more normal to be able to understand our feminine and masculine energy and dynamics that allow us to be able to communicate better with our loved ones, be able to communicate better with ourselves, as that is where it first starts. It all starts first within us, and then we are able to not only empower ourselves but continue to empower others and continue to have a ripple effect that has a lasting effect in another person's lives, and we continue to make something more solid. We continue to be able to work something out, kind of like a muscle that continues to get stronger and stronger the more that we practice it. Throughout our lives, there have been multiple chapters in our lives, in any person's lives, where there have been wounds that we acquired earlier on as a child who burns their hand by touching the stove a little too fast, and they are left with a mark that needs healing. Now, there's a difference between healing at our own natural pace and utilizing that event, that trauma, as a trigger where we continuously connect to it in a way where we feel like we are reliving it again and over again, rather than allowing it to heal by itself. Similarly to when we get a cut and we put a band-aid on, we make sure to take care of it, and then after some time the body does what it knows how to do best, which is healing itself. There is a number of unconscious wounds that have an impact on how we interact with other people. And these include dynamics of how we operate with feminine and masculine energy as reminders, such as the sisterhood wound, the mother wound, the father wound, and the witch wound. These reflect how we interact with other people who remind us of feminine energy, masculine energy, and they feel intimidating, untrustworthy, and unsafe. So what we do is that we end up creating a lock to protect ourselves. For example, the mother wound can show up when we feel unseen, unheard, unacknowledged by a female figure that we respect. The sisterhood one can show up when we don't feel that we can trust another woman, or that we don't feel accepted by another woman. We feel that even by glancing at a woman once, we don't get enough reassurance that we should trust that person. We might get the impression that deep down there's something threatening about her, and it's better to get her off your sight. And we end up cultivating prejudice, and we end up building these walls around women. The father wound can show up in our lives when we don't feel safe or vulnerable enough around men. We don't feel secure, and we feel that we need this shield of protection around men. So at a subconscious level, we don't want to feel hurt or vulnerable around men. The witch wound can show up in our lives when we feel afraid to speak our truth, when we feel afraid to go after our dreams, when we feel afraid to show up as our authentic selves, because deep down we don't want to be persecuted, we don't want to feel that we're threatened, that our freedom is threatened, and our safety is threatened. All of these wounds show up as a defense and protection mechanism from events that we experience earlier on in childhood to that we even carry in our DNA through our ancestors. But here's the thing. They limit us. We feel repelled, we feel that energetic friction, and rather than empowering us, we have this unconscious bias that rather than empowering us, they actually limit us, as they could be or could not be a legitimate concern. So we need a bit more information before we're able to shut down. And it's important to notice where we shut down, as these are areas of ourselves that require more attention. And the beautiful thing about being able to be present with ourselves, being able to have reflection time with ourselves, is that we only need to do it at the beginning when we feel that something is bothering us, and be able to sit there as if you're sitting with your childhood version or with a kid, and you're just listening and hearing the feedback. A lot of times in childhood we didn't get the opportunity to express ourselves in a way where we didn't feel that we were doing wrong at expressing ourselves, or trying to be authentic. So we bottled up a lot of these different insecurities, and they come up later on, and we see them in different dynamics that involved other people, another person, our partner, and they come out in subliminal, subconscious ways, where if we're not able to differentiate those energy patterns that were created as a way to protect ourselves, we might end up confusing something that requires some attention because it's reminding us of something from our past and leading us to sabotage a connection And these type of assumptions play a role with the people who we interact, especially the ones that we interact with at a more intimate level. They can be friendships, they can be within our family dynamics, or these people can also be people who we love. They can be our partners, and we don't realize that we are creating more blocks rather than boundaries. Boundaries are good to have, but they're different than blocks, different than walls. Boundaries are, I respect you and you respect me, and that other person acknowledges it. And rather than looking at boundaries as something that is like a dragon to be slayed, boundaries are there to continue to create and cultivate healthy communication, keeping each other in mind. So, how can we tell the difference when it's something that is concerning versus something that just requires a little bit of attention? We become more aware of our own healthy version. We work more towards cultivating healthy dynamics within ourselves, and then therefore we're gonna be able to tell a lot easier when it's a toxic pattern. Sort of like when you drink water and it's crystal clear, pure water, and you have another glass of water, but this one feels like it's tap water. You can tell the difference. It's subtle. They look the same. They could even be labeled something similar, water, but you can tell that one is not as healthy as the other. Throughout years of studying, of understanding, of practicing healing, I've realized that there is this notion where we have to continuously heal and heal and heal and do shadow work and do shadow work and do shadow work. And although it's good that we take charge towards a direction of healing, if we look at healing as something that has to be done over and over again, as if there's still something wrong, we don't actually heal that. Just like in nature, things break, things are born again, nature heals itself, and similarly, we have to be more empowered within our own abilities to heal ourselves in a way that is more precise and faster, and is not going to take us down a rabbit hole where we're going to end up in an abyss rather than enlightenment at the end of the tunnel. Ultimately, whatever happens, there's always the opportunity to turn anything into a lesson, but the difference is gonna be on how long something takes you. Some things are gonna be more distracting, and they're gonna take you a lot longer to understand and a lot longer to get the lessons out of them, and therefore you need to detox from those. And there's gonna be other experiences that, although they are challenging, because we are meant to be challenged in life. Even when we look at butterflies, a butterfly didn't just become a butterfly just like that. A cocoon phase is one of the most important ones in the phase of becoming a butterfly. Anything could happen at this moment of vulnerability when we have the cocoon hanging, and it could be raining, there could be predators, it could be windy, so many things can happen, but it's the faith of that being inside that knows that it's going to make it through the end, and there's no way of going back. There's no way to pause and rewind and going back to being a caterpillar. No. So we have to embrace being able to accept things as they are. And part of that is understanding the duality of being alive, the duality of nature, even appreciating when there is daylight and we feel warm, and then when there is nighttime and it's cooler, and each one has their own purpose. Without one or the other, we wouldn't see Earth as it is now. We wouldn't be able to enjoy or rest the same way as we have now. So what I found to be more impactful and profound is to focus on your own self-development. As in nature, everything is transforming, everything is always changing, so whenever things happen, acknowledge them. sit there with them. Sit there with the version of yourself that needs your attention, and be able to have practical ways, sort of like having a first aid kit ready whenever you need it, in case of emergency, in case of need, and be able to have that ready with yourself, and be able to have an approach that is compassionate but at the same time is practical. And as always, I recommend to dedicate time to meditating, as meditating is the doorway to connecting to our higher self, to be able to connect not only to a higher power, but strengthening our intuition. And when we strengthen our own intuition, we are able to know things that simply do not make sense at the level of the mind, but because we have worked out this intuition, we know that it's coming from a higher place for our own good. Our intuition is not able to backstab us. That is just not possible. That would be as if we were trying to backstab our own selves. That just doesn't work. So the more that you practice your intuition, sort of like a muscle that you work out, the stronger your connection and your antenna is to the universe, to connecting to the vortex that takes you to that connection with God, with the universe, with Mother Nature. And the more easily that you're able to be in the present, the less healing that you feel that you're gonna have to do. As you are connected to the present, you realize that things feel different, like as if you're stepping into a different reality, as if you're adding more dimensions by just noticing and observing, by just being the gentle observer of your life. And this is powerful. We don't really realize or practice enough of these realizations. We think that when we have to meditate, we have to be there in complete serenity, no noise, and if we think something, that means we're bad at meditating, when we can just let and allow our thoughts to come and leave like clouds. Just gently like that, like clouds, and then continuing to going back to a moment where you're being present and grounded. And the best times to meditate are before you go to sleep and as you wake up. This is when we're able to have the highest impact with our meditation, and when we plant seeds with intention, as when you tell yourself, I'm gonna have a good day, I just can feel it, I feel that today is gonna be beautiful, there's something gonna be, like when you put that intention right there like that, and you continue to go throughout your day, your subconscious already got the download of today is gonna be a good day. And it's almost like your subconscious is just welcoming and it's more open to receiving positivity. As we get to know more of our feminine energies, it's also important to know our own body's shifts and our hormonal changes, as they have an impact in our lives. When we see how our bodies reflect nature's ebb and flow, we gain and unlock a different perspective and empower ourselves. For women, being able to go through our different hormonal phases and our different ups and downs is something that is a challenge for everyone. Each cycle is different than the other. However, each cycle reflects back and gives us feedback on our own state of well-being. When we're able to read our own phases, sort of like how we're able to accept and acknowledge nature's different season, we are able to not only accept our bodies as they are and their beautiful ingredients, but also we empower ourselves knowing that for each phase there is a purpose. Similarly to how in nature, for each season, there is a purpose. So let's start with our own winter season, which is our menstrual phase, also known as our moon time. Just like in winter time, when it's time to rest and reflect, when we first start bleeding, that is the first day of our new cycle. This is when nature requires us to take it easy, take it slow, get a heating pad if needed. This is when we prioritize drinking soups, drinking herbal teas, and eating foods rich in iron, as also warmer temperatures aid with cramping. When we are around colder temperatures, we're gonna notice that our cramps get worse. So that is why it's good to have a heating pad, so that way if we need to turn it on and utilize it, we are able to get more comfort that way. A tip that you can do right before you start bleeding is to eat dark chocolate beforehand, and not milk chocolate. Actually, the closer to 100% dark chocolate that you get, the better. This is going to actually soothe and aid your menstrual cramps when they arrive. The next season is our springtime, which is our follicular phase. This is when we start to feel that we gain more energies, when we start to feel more optimistic, when we feel more alive again. Of course, we're not bleeding during this time. This is when we feel more optimistic to engage in activities and be able to utilize our time in more creative ways. So eating things that remind us of spring, such as fruits, veggies, and grains, are going to allow us to support our growth and our renewal energies. The next season is our summer season, which is the ovulation phase. This is when, at a hormonal level, we feel at our most radiant, and even our skin looks radiant. It feels healthy, it looks healthy, and this is when, in nature, our bodies signal that we are fertile. So doing some light and fun activities such as dancing, promoting circulation, and enhancing your energies and vitality, and also eating some nice and refreshing meals that include omega-3s such as nuts and avocados are good during this phase. This is also a good time to appreciate the people we love, the animals that we love, as we are flowing with love, with more of an effortless connection to our feel-good hormones. The next season is our autumn season, which is our luteal phase. This is also when we start to notice our bodies shifting and adapting to receive our menstrual phase, which is our moon time. So we're going to notice our bodies shifting into more discomfort, more bloating, more mood swings. Practicing some gentle activities such as yoga and some light exercises, including walking, are good ways to reduce stress and be able to continue a healthy flow within your body, and also promote relaxation. So make sure that you are allowing yourself to have more of mindful moments where you appreciate your body and you're able to be there with your body as you're going through these changes and shifts that are approaching with your menstrual cycle coming up. So practicing self-compassion, getting that dark chocolate from earlier, and doing some light and fun activities that allow you to relax, such as yoga, doing some light walking, and allowing yourself to have a beautiful communication with your body as it's trying to just feel okay as these changes are about to happen. Having that self-compassion is going to make things go a lot more enlightening and a lot smoother. Okay, now we're gonna get into our meditation. So allow yourself to find a comfortable position, whether you're sitting down or you're laying down. Make sure that you feel a connection going down your spine. So make sure that you're comfortable and you allow yourself to have this time to connect with yourself. So let's start. Take a deep breath in through your nose. And exhale In through your nose. Out through your mouth. One more time. Take a deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. Now, imagine that you are in front of the ocean. It's a beautiful, sunny, radiant day with just the right type of temperature where it's not too hot, but you can also enjoy a cool breeze. And as you stand in front of the water, you feel the waves reaching your skin. You feel this flow of coming and going, back and forth. You feel connected to the ocean, and you feel your body adapting to best support you. Your posture feels good, as if you have wings on your back, ready to protect you, allowing you to feel relaxed and at ease. Notice the beautiful ways in which you feel relaxed, yet still you are attuned to your environment. You know that at any moment a new wave can surprise you. So your posture is balanced, yet your body is still relaxed, allowing your back to feel those wings ready to support you, representing the masculine energy that supports you and allows you to enjoy this moment. At this moment, imagine that you're communicating with the ocean. The ocean represents the depths of your emotions. The land where you stand makes you feel grounded. The air you breathe makes you feel alive. And your spirit ignites the passion inside of you. At this moment, you feel in total balance, feeling supported by your masculine energies, and you feel relaxed, going with the flow with your feminine energy. It feels good. In your heart, there is a wish that perhaps has been there for some time. What is this wish? Be present with it, feel it, imagine it, envision it, and bring this wish to the ocean. Put your hands over your heart and imagine that you're transferring this wish from your heart space into the air, into the ocean, and the ocean lovingly receives your wish. Just like that. How does this make you feel? Knowing that at any moment you can connect to nature, and nature is listening. Feel the effect of being able to relax and feeling supported at the same time. Gently, when you're ready, come back. Take your time to self-reflect and turn this moment into something that you can go back to when you need to reflect. Thank you for your presence. I am so glad that you're here. I appreciate your energetic feedback whenever I see your likes, your comments. If you would like to get notifications whenever I upload a new video, make sure to turn on the bell notification icon so that way you are the first to know. If you want to watch the complete feminine energy series that I have created, I'm going to also link the playlist so that way you have easy access to it. If you want to connect with me and my world, make sure to check out the description box to get more information, as I have listed everything over there. I wish you a beautiful and magical day. I will see you in my next video. Bye.